Yo guys, Julian here. Today I'm gonna be showing you how to make music like death grips. Now, I want to start and say this isn't any kind of like definitive guide by any means. I'm just trying to show you guys some techniques that I think could be helpful and definitely you can learn from and sort of apply to your own music. So anyway, if you heard the intro, you know we have this little loop. For whatever reason, I decided to make everything red, so that is why everything is red. um, but yeah, this little loop that you heard, basically, it's just about like 8 elements, I guess. And the first one is this ARP that I put together, which sounds like this on its own. So what this is it's this little FM ARP, and it's got a little bit of distortion on it and a little bit of grain delay to sort of take it to another level, I guess. But I can show you without those. It's still pretty much the whole thing. And the reason why I used FM synthesis, because a question I get a lot is like, oh, when do I know like what kind of synthesis to use? Like when should I use FM synthesis? When should I use like serum? Like I don't know. For very, very like beginners, this tends to be a thing. And so here's an actual case where I can explain why I used FM synthesis. The reason why I used FM synthesis here is because I was trying to make this kind of like metallic, almost percussive sound. Like if you listen to it, and when you listen to the whole loop, you can hear it's doing like the 16th notes, and it's adding a little bit of like this metallic percussion sound. And yeah, so basically, I guess I'll just start with the music. As far as like the notes, I just kind of drew in, I guess, a bunch of stuff. It's pretty much just in F sharp minor though. If you look at the scale, here I'll fold it. If I just do this, it's just a bunch of notes. It's just F sharp minor up 2 octaves. And just a bunch of like random notes. And this is just sort of like to make it feel like it's sort of all over the place, like having like such a heavy jump from octave to octave like I have here. Is kind of, yeah, like I said, it just sort of makes it feel like it's all over the place, and it just gives it like this sense of kind of like tension, I guess is the best way I can put it. Which has to do with other things going on here as well, which I'll explain. But yeah, this ARP definitely feels very tense. And it's really nothing crazy melodically. It's just an F minor chord across 2 octaves, arpeggiated. Now as far as the synth sound, it started with a sine wave. Here, I'll turn off the pitch envelope. So it just started with the sine wave, and you can see I set the attack and sustain and decay and release in this way, with no sustain, short decay, a bit of release, just enough to give it so it's not just like clicking, but so it feels a little bit more alive. And then I added this oscillator, which as you can hear is really giving it that sort of FM kind of sound. This sound was very inspired by Sophie as well. I don't know if you're familiar with Sophie, but she's great. And then this third oscillator kind of adds like the percussiveness in that last little, just sort of that last little bit of, I guess, the effect I was going for. And all I did with these was I just turned up the level and I kept it on the default FM mode. And then I used the coarse pitch to make it more metallic, because by default, if you listen, that's still cool. But the higher you put this coarse pitch, essentially the more metallic it gets. And then with the third one, excuse me, I also did that as well. The only other thing I did in Operator for the sound was I used this pitch envelope, which I just turned down all the way. And it sounded cool to me because you're still getting the sort of clicking and like hi-hat kind of sound from this third oscillator being on. But then you also get this like very fast pitch envelope going like up on every note. And it just sort of helps bring it to life for me. So all I did for that was I think I just messed with the decay actually, because by default it comes like this, and I just set it like that. So after operator, I have an overdrive on here, and I think this is actually just all the default stuff. Like if you just drop it on a track, let me try here, overdrive. Yeah, everything is just default, so I guess that's pretty easy. That was just to sort of crunch it up and beef it up and give it a little bit more harmonics. And bring out the sort of white noise thing, because that almost like hi-hat sound that you can hear on top of this sound really helps the groove. Like if I play it with the whole loop and then turn this thing off, it's really missing a lot of percussiveness. So this thing is adding, it's kind of doing like 2 in 1 with this thing. And then after that I just added the grain delay. And I just set that like this. Nothing too crazy. If you watch my grain delay tutorial, then you'll know how to do this. But I just use that to get that last little bit of sort of metallic kind of weirdness on it, and give it some space with the delay. I have this track with Serum, which I'll go over in a second. But I want to talk about this 808, because it's quite a bit of stuff. So essentially the kick / 808 combo sounds like this on its own. And what that is it's this thing, this low 808, like an actual sub, and then this kick. So this first thing, I'll just go over the distorted thing first. So we've got a few layers going on here. The first one is just this one operator, which is a saw wave with a long decay but no sustain and a short little release. And then a pitch envelope. Let me solo it. So that's kind of like a lot of the sound right there. If you listen. And all that's really going on in there is, yeah, like I said, that, and then basically just a bunch of distortion and EQing in the drum bus to make it sort of like nastier. And this is kind of like a point I want to make about these layers, is that with this kind of stuff, this like super distorted crazy stuff, I'm pretty sure this layer is just the same thing but with a low pass filter on it. And then there's this one. Okay, so this one is like roughly the same thing, except there is a little bit less processing on it, and it's got this higher, it's got this square wave mixed in with the FM to give it some high end. Now, when you're making this kind of stuff, it's kind of hard to sort of like set out and say, okay, I'm going to make this sound, it's going to sound exactly like this. When I was making this, I kind of just went in and was like, all right, I'm going to put a bunch of distortion on some FM synthesis and some kick-ish sounds that I can make with FM synthesis, and to sort of see what happens. And that's essentially what I did. So yeah, it's like, I guess kind of hard to explain all these. It can look kind of daunting to make these sounds, but the key to making these sounds isn't like having a very clear end goal in mind. It's let's just go in and make a bunch of stuff and just like sort of ride the wave of what sounds cool. So that's what I did. So after that rack, so that is all the stuff that's like in that instrument rack. Let me make sure I don't have anything. Okay, no. So after that, I have another amp on here, like on the overall sound for not for chorus, for just to give it like more distortion. So I'll show you without it. I'll just take these off. So this is the sound coming out of the instrument rack, which sounds cool, but I wanted to do a little bit more to it. So I have this amp on here, which just sort of like makes it more crunchy. And the amp is a really good way to do distortion in Ableton. It's very harmonically rich, and it can just really add a lot to your sounds. If you're looking for the kind of distortion where like it really changes the sound in a meaningful way that you can do a lot with, this is definitely the thing for you. I definitely recommend using it. So I'll just make that smaller. And then I have this frequency splitter rack. And what I've done is I've split the frequencies of this sound, or I've split it into 3 different frequency groups. Essentially, we have the high end, the mids, and then the lows. And the way that I did that was, first I put this EQ3, I'll do it again, I'll show you, on the low. And then I set the frequency to 161, I guess. And what you can do with this EQ3 is you can just turn off extra bands. So like, okay, for example, if I have this sound, and I just turn off the mids and highs, or let's turn off the lows and highs, and then just keep the mids, you can just do that. And as long as you have your like low frequency and your high frequency set the same on all three, you can just copy this over to 3 other like audio effect rack chains and process them all separately. So that's what I did. So what we have here is on the high end, I have a chorus to sort of spread it out a lot and give it some more stereo width. And then I have these 2 EQs. And what I did with these is I basically just went in and listened for all kind of like whistly, like bad high-end frequencies and cut them out. And then I boosted the high end after that, which I know isn't the best thing to do, but I mean, I was just trying to get the sound out of it that I wanted. So I think it's not too bad. But I'll show you without these EQs. It's kind of nasty sounding. If you're listening like loud, you can definitely hear like there's a lot of just untamed high end. So this EQ fixes that. Now it's like the same high end and the same sound, but it's a lot cleaner and just sort of nicer sounding and easier to listen to. And then I have this EQ over that, which just boosts the high end. After that, I have it a bit warmer on there because it just sort of beefed it up a little bit and made it a little bit more harmonically rich in a way that I liked. And I mean, this wouldn't be one of my videos if I didn't use it, so it's perfect. Now, on the mids, I have pretty much similar processing, minus that EQ stuff I did. I just have another chorus on here with like a high amount, and then 2 a bit warmers just to beef it up a little. I'll show you what it sounded like before all that. It was just kind of dull, but this way, it's just a bit fatter and a bit nicer and a bit warmer. Now the low end, all I have on here is this terrible EQ, just boosting the bass up. I don't even think it does that much. But, I mean, I have it on there. And then that's how I got this sound. You definitely could have gotten this sound a lot of other ways, though. Like, that's the thing, is that, yeah, like, there's kind of a million ways to do this, but this is the way that I did it. And this isn't really the best sound ever, but I did want to show you guys a sort of, like, complex processing chain, so I'm glad I could do that using this. After that, we just have this 808 as, like, a sub, because there wasn't a lot of sub-frequencies. There weren't a lot of sub-frequencies coming out of that 808, so I added this, just like this low one. And all of these are just playing an F sharp to go with the key of the ARP. And yeah, not really too much to say about that 808. Then I have this kick in here, which I'll show you what the original file sounded like. I didn't really mess with it too much. All I did was just EQ'd out the like really low end. So that was the original hit, and that was kind of what I wanted, was just like sort of a big boomy kind of nice sounding kick. So that's what I got. And then that all together is like the 808 kick thing. Now for the snare, it's pretty simple. It's just 2 layers. I took like this sound, like it's like the snare from King's Dead by Kendrick Lamar and J-Rock and Future. I didn't sample it from there, but it's the sample they used. I got it from some Molly Raw drum kit. Let me see if I can find. Yeah, so I didn't really do anything to that. I just put it in there and leveled it out. And then I have this snare. Just like a regular trap snare, which I think is a pretty good combination. And listening to Death Grips music, I hear that they do that a lot. Like, they'll layer like a trap snare or like a live snare or, you know, sounds like that. With like a more sort of percussive sound for like a snare. So that's what I have here. I got a regular snare, and then I got this like thing. And I think they sound pretty good together, and they cut through the mix well. It's a good like balance from like the kick to the snare. And yeah, I mean, it's a good rhythm, I think, as well. Like, rhythm is an important thing to think about with this kind of music because it's kind of like all about rhythm. Like, even like my melodic elements, like these two things, they're both rhythmic. Like, this is doing eighth notes, and this is doing 16th notes, and then we have this like slow, sort of like sludgy drum beat under it, which, yeah, I mean, that's kind of like the key to the sound, I think, is sort of like having these like driving melodic elements over these like slow, like almost grinding beats. Which I guess you might say is like an oversimplification, but I think that is kind of like the key. Like, if you want a place to start, that's like a good thing to do. Like, just program in an 808 and a snare, and then like try to make some like sort of jumping melodic elements. And yeah, I mean, not too much else to say really about the snare. It's just pretty simple. It's just 2 layers. Um, then we have this thing. So this thing is basically this. And so what I've done, let me see if I can get I can look this up. Essentially, what I've done is I've taken this like sample that I got from Splice, from this Sakima, I might be saying that wrong, I'm sorry, pack. I'm pretty sure I still have it. Maybe I don't. Um, but essentially, there was like this. Okay, yeah, I don't have it. But if you have Splice, you can go and look at this. It's like this recorder ensemble sample, and essentially, it didn't say the original key. Oh, whoops. But I just put it in this granular synth, the Granulator 2 for Ableton. It's max for live, but I'm pretty sure if you got Ableton 10, which you would have to open this project file, it comes with Max for Live, I'm pretty sure. I already had it when I got 10, but I'm pretty sure it comes with it now. Essentially, and this device is free. I'm gonna put the link for it in the description. But essentially what this is doing is it's just creating like a drone. And so the way granular synthesis works is it's basically a sampler. Like, it just replays audio, but what it's doing here is it's using the spray knob, and if you look at the little line, it's like bouncing around. So it's replaying random parts of the song, of the like original file. If I turn off the spray, it's a lot more boring because it's just playing one spot. But when I have it all the way up to where I had it, it sounds slightly different each time. And this is a really good way to like give your tracks sort of like randomness. Which is, I think, kind of like the key to like really good sound design is randomness and like humanness. To me, like, as far as sound design goes, I feel like with the like skill levels and stuff, it sort of is like, okay, first you start off and you like, make some cool sounds. Maybe you get to a point where you can make really clean, like really nice sounds, and like you're good with like Serum and all that. But then like the real like high level of sound design to me is using a computer to make like music that's human and is like truly random while still controlled. And this is one of those techniques I think that can get you there, is using the spray knob, because like I said, it's playing back at random times and it just sounds cooler to me. So that's pretty much how I did that. Now, this element is really more about the whole mix because it's supposed to work with this ARP. If you listen to them together, they're like kind of dissonant, and it's like unsettling in a nice way. That feels very Death Grips to me. Because like the chord that this is playing is like sort of not working with this ARP, but then at the same time it is, because like I said, we have like this very dissonant vibe going on here. And it just makes the whole thing kind of uneasy. And this isn't like the best Death Grips tutorial ever, but I think I did cover some important things with like making your like these melodic things kind of dissonant, like I said. Like really, that's like really like a musical way to get closer. Like, okay, you may not know how to do all this like sound design, you may not know how to like make like this art, for example, but if you can make these, if you can somehow like make these kind of like cool melodic things like I'm talking about, I mean, you have more of the battle won than if you knew how to sound design and didn't know how to do this kind of stuff. And you don't necessarily have to. Here's an important key too. Is like you see here. I didn't know to make this chord and throw this in here. I don't know why I put this in a drum rack, by the way. I guess that just kind of happened. But I didn't know to like make this chord like on MIDI and then put it in here. I just had this and I dragged it in and it sounded weird. And like I still got the sound that I was going for. So you don't necessarily have to be like a master of chords or anything, but you just have to have the ear to know like how to make it work. And yeah, guys, that's pretty much that. I have this other one over here. I messed with the kicks a little bit over in this one. So that was kind of cool, I guess. But that's how to make music like Death Grips. That's pretty much it. I do have this one other layer. There's Serum here. Just doing this riser. It's just a really simple patch. I think it's just a saw wave. It sounds like to me. It's gonna take a second to load. Okay, it's just a square wave with a bunch of unison, and then I have this pitch bend. You can see the wheel. The wheel is going up there. And then I have LFO tool on that to make it like pump. Nothing too crazy. I just have that in the background for if you want it when you download this project file. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching. Download this project file for free in the description. Check out my sample packs on my Bandcamp. Go get the Max for Live granulator, the granular synth. I'm gonna put it in the description. And yeah, thank you so much. Like this video, subscribe, comment, share it. Let me know what you thought. Thanks, everybody.